Welcome each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining us here at the Desautels Faculty of Management here at McGill University. My name is Joy Bennett. I am simply here to introduce the leader of this great faculty, Dr. Yolande Chan. Elle est doyenne et professeure titulaire d'une chaire James McGill à la Faculté de la gestion des hôtels de l'Université McGill. Fière canadienne d'origine jamaïcaine, elle est la première personne noire nommée à la tête d'une faculté de l'Université McGill. Avant de se joindre à la faculté de la gestion des hôtels, la Chan a occupé plusieurs postes de leadership pendant plus de 20 ans à l'Université Queen's, où elle a notamment été titulaire d'une chaire de technologie numérique et occupé le poste de vice-principale adjointe à la recherche. A graduate of MIT, she is MIT's first Black Rhodes Scholar and first female Rhodes Scholar. At McGill Desautels, Dean Chan has been an amazing leader who demonstrates empathy and care for those she shepherds. It is truly an honor to work for such an extraordinary woman who has faced many obstacles and challenges with grace and professionalism. It is my honor to present to you Dean Yolande Chan. Thank you.
And it's my great honor to work with Joy and so many of you in this room and to serve this community. Bonjour. Bonjour à tous. Good afternoon, everyone. Before we begin, let us take a moment to acknowledge that McGill University is situated on land that has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst Indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. And we acknowledge and thank these Indigenous and diverse peoples. Their footsteps have marked this territory on which we now gather. It's important to acknowledge that as we gather today to discuss equity in entrepreneurship. It's important to reflect on the historical and systemic barriers that have affected Indigenous and, yes, Black and other members of underrepresented communities here in Canada, in Montreal, and at McGill. In academia, basically, in business, in the spheres of influence. So it's my great honor to welcome you here today. And you may not know this, but this is the event that opens our Black History Month activities at Desautels. It's an important event. It's an opportunity for us to explore the intersection of research and lived experiences in the context of Black women leaders and entrepreneurs. As you heard, I'm the first Black dean at McGill. But you may not know that for over 2 decades, I have mentored women and individuals who are Black. And you also probably don't know that I actually studied digital entrepreneurship. So the conversation we're having this evening is really, really important to me. And it's important to McGill, and it's important to Montreal, and it's important to Canada, and it's important to North America, and so forth. So Black women in business face unique challenges, but we also face tremendous opportunities. I like being in my skin. We'll be hearing today from leading researchers, from entrepreneurs, about how research and reality converge and diverge at times. Across Canada, Black women are making strides in entrepreneurship, but they still face some obstacles for growth and success. Historically, Black women have been entrepreneurial out of necessity. I know many of you have some wonderful mamas, as we say. You found, and everyone found, a way forward. We've created businesses to fill gaps in industries that have historically excluded us. And our spirit remains, but so do the barriers, and that's why we're here. According to a recent study by Statistics Canada and the Black Business and Professional Association, 81.4% of Black female business owners today in Canada rely on their own funds, personal funds, to start their businesses. And that is a rate that is significantly higher, statistically higher than other groups. It highlights a critical gap, a gap in access to external financing, as many Black women entrepreneurs struggle to secure loans and investment capital. They face high borrowing costs and very limited access to influential financial networks. And these bring about additional hurdles as they try to scale their businesses. It's a reminder of those systemic barriers to which I referred when I started this talk. Yet, despite these challenges, Black women entrepreneurs remain highly motivated. They are creative and they are often driven by their community impact. That same study found that 87.9% of respondents launched their businesses to address unmet needs in their communities. And it demonstrated the essential role that they play in their communities and beyond to foster economic growth and social progress. They're community builders, they are change makers, they are dreamers, they are leaders in social innovation, they are fighters, they are winners, they are our Black women entrepreneurs. And we are here today to assist them, to see them succeed, and we're working today to remove barriers. And this conversation, we hope, will even today expand and extend access and networks that ultimately will support Black women in business. I hope our discussion will allow us to explore some of the realities faced and to reflect on ways that we can collectively work towards greater equity in entrepreneurship. I'll wrap up, but before I do, I just want to thank and recognize those who've made today's event possible. I know the work that's gone into today. It's the result of dedicated efforts at McGill Desautels, Laidley Center for Business Ethics and Equity, or the LCBEE, and the McGill Black Alumni Association, and of course our EDI team. It reflects our faculty's commitment to advancing ethics, equity, and inclusion throughout our programming, throughout our initiatives, throughout our research. And I want to thank LCBEE Director Lindsay Holmgren. Lindsay, where are you? Oh, right there. Okay. And the organizing team, you saw Joy. Joy opened the event. Nikita. Dr. Anisette Fangwa, you will be hearing from Anisette. Kay Das. And Joelle Moses, right there. I just want to also recognize the members of the McGill Black Alumni Association, the McGill Equity Office, and the MasterCard Foundation Scholars Program team who assisted and who are also here today. Your support is instrumental in creating the networks and the opportunities that are helping Black women entrepreneurs thrive. So thank you all, and I thank you to the presenters, to the panelists, to the guests, to you, the attendees. I'm looking forward to today's event. and I look forward to a very new and bright tomorrow. So without further ado, Nikita, the floor is yours. Merci à tous.
Thank you, Dean Chan, for your opening remarks. We're going to move right into our research presentations. This is going to be 20 minutes rapid fire. Each presenter has 5 minutes. Presenters, please notice Zara here in the corner. Zara, raise your board. Please monitor her. Zara will be counting down the time. You're set, you have your clickers. They are going to be presented in the following order. Dr. Suchit Ahuja from Concordia University, followed by Dr. Corinne Chinyu Chuo from UQAM, Robert Nason from McGill University, and then Luciano Barron Cruz from HEC Montreal. There will be no questions at this time. You can save them to the end. Suchit, over to you. Thank you.
Feel like a student, but that's okay. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Suchit Ahuja. I'm from Concordia at GMSP. I'm also the academic lead for the steering committee for the Quebec Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub. So playing dual roles and sharing some of our lessons from research. So busting myths and fortifying lessons. So I'll try and focus more on the lessons because that's where the real knowledge lies. And I say digital black entrepreneurship research, but the digital is in parentheses, and you'll know why as soon as I finish the presentation, right? Okay, so I'm here because I have worked on digital innovation and social impact research. I've worked before in marginalized contexts, particularly with waste management workers in India and with healthcare startups in First Nations, as well as in education in Northwest Territories as well. The two big projects that we did was one in MyTax, which was digitalization of entrepreneurial ecosystems, empowering black businesses in Montreal, and a new project that's going on which has women in leadership careers in Canada and India. So we are studying the intersection of what the theme for today's event is. And I want to acknowledge our team. I work with Dr. Arman Sadruddin, who's my colleague, and at the hub, at the Quebec hub, I work with Karine, who's going to follow. I also want to acknowledge Abby, who's here, who's our PhD student, who's engaged in black entrepreneurship research. Okay, lesson number 1, do not put the horse before the carriage. This conventional wisdom says you put the horse before the carriage, but not in this type of research that we did. Why? Because we went into this thinking that we're going to do digital entrepreneurship research. But it took some humility to understand the context, to understand the people, and to understand their needs. So what we realized was that there are great ecosystems and there are great entrepreneurs, but maybe the entrepreneurs are not ready for digital. So the carriage is not ready for the horse, right? Why is that? Because empowerment probably does not start with technology. There's a maturity level that the entrepreneurs need to get to before we can embed digital technologies into the ecosystems. So you can begin empowerment within black entrepreneurship ecosystems by embedding business modeling skills, business scaling skills, marketing and analytics, customer relationship management, etc. So that's lesson number 1, maturity levels. Lesson number 2, the seashells may look the same, but their patterns are different. So within an ecosystem, you can talk to different entrepreneurs, and you will have different results talking to them. Because black entrepreneurs are not a monolith, right? So that's a big myth that we're going to study black entrepreneurship, and we're going to study black ecosystems, but it's very different when you go to the level of the entrepreneur, of the individual entrepreneur, right? There are different business domains, there are different customer needs, they come from different communities, they have completely different skill sets. Abby has interviewed entrepreneurs that are doing sort of blockchain, digital stuff on one day, and the next day she meets another entrepreneur that's running a cake baking business from her basement and has no idea what a Shopify storefront looks like. So that's the reality that we're dealing with. It takes a community. I will say less about this, but the one I want to focus on is there are many black entrepreneurship ecosystems within Montreal, but I think the element that is lacking within the black entrepreneurship ecosystems is data. So we need data to be able to embed and create the right policies for the entrepreneurship to foster, and to thrive. We don't have that yet. And why is data important? Because data needs to be owned by the community that creates the data. We do not want to repeat the mistakes of the past where data can be used to exploit the communities. So data ownership, data sovereignty, and then the monetization of data is really important, but the ownership needs to lie with the community that the data belongs to. And finally, partnerships, right? Plugging into an ecosystem. If you're an entrepreneur, you need to know which ecosystem is the best for you. If you have the data, we would know that. But also there are many services that an entrepreneur can take advantage of. Community Service Initiative at GMSB is particularly for Black entrepreneurship, where MBA students and MSc students are consultants for Black businesses. We also have incubators like Transet and Origin Village that cater to the needs of the Black entrepreneurs. And then finally, we have the Quebec Black Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, where we are trying to bring together researchers and entrepreneurs for a discussion on what's the way forward. So I see I have no more time left. With that, I want to thank you, and I will be open to questions later. Thank you so much.
Alors, bonjour à tout le monde, je suis Karen Tuinou, je suis prof à l'Université du Québec à Montréal et je m'intéresse beaucoup à tout ce qui est l'entrepreneuriat, donc l'entrepreneuriat des femmes, en particulier des femmes immigrantes. Et la recherche que je vais vous présenter aujourd'hui rapidement porte sur l'importance du réseautage en fait pour ces femmes entrepreneurs-là. Et dans ce cadre-là, on a travaillé principalement avec un incubateur montréalais qui accompagne spécifiquement des femmes entrepreneurs qui sont issues de la diversité ethnoculturelle à Montréal. Et donc, on voulait comprendre principalement c'est quoi leur réseau au Québec et comment, lorsqu'elles arrivent, étant donné qu'elles sont assez nouvellement arrivées au sein de la province, comment elles se constituent ce réseau-là, quelles sont les barrières qu'elles rencontrent pour se constituer un réseau et pourquoi elles ont rejoint spécifiquement un groupe, un incubateur, un accompagnateur qui est spécialisé dans l'accompagnement des femmes immigrantes. Alors, rapidement, c'est ça, on a fait principalement des groupes de discussion. On a fait 4 groupes de discussion avec ces femmes-là et quelques entretiens approfondis également. Donc, c'était 25. Et les leçons, en fait, qui sont tirées principalement, c'est des leçons beaucoup pour ces femmes entrepreneurs, mais pour l'écosystème québécois, l'écosystème canadien d'accompagnement de façon générale pour sensibiliser un peu cet écosystème-là sur la réalité aussi de ces femmes, de ce profil d'entrepreneurs spécifiques comme Sushit le mentionnait tout à l'heure. Les femmes entrepreneurs, c'est vraiment plusieurs groupes spécifiques. Il n'y a pas nécessairement un profil généralisé qui permet de les définir, mais dans ce cas-ci, lorsqu'on parle de femmes qui viennent d'arriver, qui rencontrent encore des difficultés en lien avec les procédures d'immigration, en lien avec leur insertion locale, c'est sûr que les défis sont différents à ce moment-là. Donc, ce qu'on se rend compte, c'est que pourquoi elles vont rejoindre dans un premier temps un réseau spécialisé, c'est parce que elles s'y sentent bien, tout simplement. C'est parce qu'elles y trouvent d'autres personnes, d'autres femmes comme elles, avec lesquelles elles peuvent avoir un lien plus fort, étant donné qu'ils partagent souvent la même histoire, le même profil. Et donc, elles se retrouvent finalement dans un espace d'entraide, un espace authentique, un espace sécuritaire aussi. Et ça, c'était important de voir que finalement, on a souvent l'impression qu'il y a une barrière entre ce groupe de femmes entrepreneurs avec un profil assez spécifique et l'écosystème local. Donc, parfois, elles se sentent jugées par les incubateurs qui sont un peu plus généralistes. Donc, le fait d'appartenir à un incubateur un peu plus spécialisé, ça leur permet justement de se retrouver entre elles et de s'entraider et de discuter, de poser des questions sur, par exemple, c'est quoi un plan d'affaires? Donc, des questions qui sont supposées être connues dans le milieu entrepreneurial, mais que, étant donné leur background, elles n'ont pas nécessairement ces mêmes repères-là. L'autre leçon aussi pour l'écosystème, c'est ce sentiment d'être représenté. Parce que ce qui est revenu aussi dans les discours, c'est beaucoup l'idée que l'entrepreneuriat, c'est beaucoup dans le secteur technologique, c'est beaucoup porté par des hommes. Et même lorsqu'on parle d'entrepreneuriat féminin, c'est beaucoup encore des femmes blanches. Et donc, l'idée de se retrouver dans un espace où elles ont l'impression d'être représentées avec d'autres femmes qui ont réussi, qui partagent, on parle beaucoup de modèles de rôle, donc qui représentent un peu comme des modèles pour elles. Ça leur permet de se dire que elles sont pas là simplement pour bénéficier de l'aide sociale au Québec, elles sont aussi là pour faire grandir la société. Et je vais passer rapidement sur les pratiques spécifiques de cet incubateur-là. Ce qui est ressorti, c'est beaucoup des pratiques qui sont en lien avec leur personnalité, donc leur culture à la fin de la journée. Il y a beaucoup de ces femmes-là qui sont originaires d'Afrique francophone, où la religion, par exemple, c'est un élément majeur dans leur vie, et elles ont l'impression que c'est un endroit où elles peuvent exprimer en fait cette identité-là, et donc parfois c'est un peu souvent tabou de parler de religion au Québec, et donc de pouvoir se retrouver dans des sectes comme ça où elles peuvent parler de leur religion, c'était bénéfique pour elles. Ensuite, rapidement, ce qui émerge en fait de la recherche, c'est que souvent on a l'impression qu'il y a une barrière entre un accompagnement un peu plus spécialisé qu'on peut avoir en fonction des profils très typiques, très spécifiques des femmes. J'ai terminé, c'est ma dernière diapositive. Et un entrepreneuriat plus généraliste, en fait, qu'on va destiner à tout le monde, à tout entrepreneur qui vient de se lancer. Et ce qu'on remarque, c'est que les deux, finalement, ne sont pas opposés. Donc, les deux interviennent à différents moments dans le parcours des femmes entrepreneurs. Et c'est important, en fait, que l'écosystème intègre aussi cette façon d'accompagner, où au début, on a besoin de peut-être plus un accompagnement spécifique, où on va comprendre d'abord la réalité en tant que femme immigrante qui s'insère dans une société avec une famille, avec des enfants, qui a besoin de comprendre les codes de la société. Donc, un accompagnement qui va un peu plus sur la spécificité en tant que femme immigrante, et avec le temps, on se rend compte que justement, avec la croissance de l'activité entrepreneuriale, ces femmes-là, de toute façon, elles veulent sortir de ces réseaux plus spécifiques pour aller vers des réseaux plus généralistes. Et donc, les deux interviennent finalement à différents moments dans le parcours d'un entrepreneur. Et l'idée aussi, c'est d'intégrer un peu plus cette représentativité-là, cette inclusivité-là dans les réseaux plus généralistes pour répondre aux besoins de ces femmes entrepreneurs-là. Donc voilà, merci pour l'écoute, et voilà, je suis disponible pour les questions plus tard. Merci.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all tonight. My name is Robert Nason. I'm associate professor here at Desautels, and I'm happy to share a little bit about a research project that I've been working on with my co-authors, Amber Mazzelli and James Carter. And this is very much work in progress, and you have much lived experience that can help shed more insight. So I welcome your feedback and thoughts on this, but I'll share a little bit about what we found so far. And in this, we're looking at Black entrepreneurship and questions of identity. And it's born from the kind of simple and obvious to many of you realization that for Black entrepreneurs, they have to think about race in a way that many other entrepreneurs don't. And frankly, that a white guy like me doesn't have to. That you're acutely aware of your racial identity often in many of the interactions in entrepreneurial spaces, which tend to be white dominated. And there's a little bit of growing research now looking at how external evaluators assess Black entrepreneurs, which unsurprisingly, but unfortunately, tends to show how Black thought and action is systematically devalued by customers and investors and the like. But in this project, what we're focused on is more of the internal sense-making of Black entrepreneurs themselves. How do they think of and make sense of the relationship between their racial identity and their entrepreneurial identity? So to address this, what we looked at was public podcasts, so narratives, which is where we talk about who we are and what makes us tick and communicate that with the outside world. We analyzed public podcasts and then private interviews one-on-one with some of the same entrepreneurs that were featured in those. And a few of the things we found, like Suchit, of course, that there's much diversity amongst Black entrepreneurs. We tend to think of essentializing Black entrepreneurship as this or that, but there's great diversity amongst Black entrepreneurs, and this room is a great example of that in itself. And as this event talks about, intersectionality matters, that Black women entrepreneurs face different challenges and opportunities than Black men entrepreneurs. But this is something, a couple of the other dimensions along which we found diversity were around how they think of the relationship between race and entrepreneurship. And this is kind of what we are interested. Some would say to us, these two identities completely conflict. You know, I go into a meeting with a bunch of primarily VCs who don't look like me, and I know they have different expectations for me than they do for my white counterparts or other counterparts. This is a conflict. Others said, no, like, you know, to be Black is to be an entrepreneur. It's part of our DNA and ancestry and the history of struggle of overcoming racism and slavery in the United States here and elsewhere has been a kind of self-reliance and independence that is totally complementary with being an entrepreneur. And others would be somewhere in the middle of saying these things are totally independent. You know, they would say things to us like, or have quotes like, you know, black and white doesn't matter if you speak green. It's just about the money. Or don't let race get in the way of revenue. Or some of the quotes they told us, right? These are totally separate worlds and I keep them separate. Another dimension, though, along which is authenticity and credibility. And for those not versed in contemporary rap battles, you see it playing out there as well. You know, Kendrick's primary kind of critique of Drake is you're not authentic, you know? And we saw this with entrepreneurs. Some saying, you know, I feel this need to like achieve credibility by conforming to these external audiences, and that undermines some of the authenticity or who I want to be. And that's kind of what Kendrick's saying to Drake. It's like, you know, you care too much about this, you're kind of trying to get this acceptance in a way, and you're losing authenticity. This, of course, in this battle is set up as a stark contrast, but it doesn't always contrast, and I think that's important too. It depends where the credibility comes from, right? I mean, even here you have Kendrick 2 days ago accepting his Grammys in his Canadian tuxedo, by the way, like saying, which is conferring a lot of credibility, right, from a certain audience. So because of the authenticity that he's projecting, saying, no, I am like a steward of black culture and history, and this is part of the authenticity that I'm conferring. And so, but this is the tension that plays out. I don't have time to get into them, but identified a number of narratives of how much more fluid this kind of situation is, of how you view the relationship between racial identity and entrepreneurial identity, and the way that that is kind of melded and configured. I'm happy to talk more about those afterwards. But what I'll leave you with is this. We had many in our study, too, that said, you know, I became an entrepreneur to leave the oppressive corporate environment where I didn't feel like I fit in, and didn't feel like I could be myself. And that there's something about entrepreneurship. There are still many challenges and hurdles, but there is something about entrepreneurship that gives more degrees of latitude and freedom to kind of be yourself and to create new models of what entrepreneurship and what that experience is. And that, I think, is something that, you know, we can learn about from black entrepreneurship, and that is important for the entrepreneurial ecosystem as a whole, is that sometimes we have too narrow a view of what entrepreneurship is, but really there's many different forms of entrepreneurship, and we need to embrace that beauty and diversity. So, thanks so much.
Hello, bonjour tout le monde. So I'm Luciano Barin-Cruz, I'm professor at HSM Montreal. So as we're at McGill, I'm going to do my presentation in English, but of course I'm open for questions in French too. It's a pleasure to be here, so thank you so much, Yolande and Anisette, for inviting me. It's very hard to me to not talk too much. I'm going to try. I know now I have more or less 4.5 minutes, so let's go for it. I'm ambitious. I have 4 main things that I want to present to you: context, methods, results, and implications. So the first thing, why I am here, my research was not particularly about black women. It was more about marginalized entrepreneurs. And I'm going to talk to you about the results we found with it, and they can eventually apply to some of the experiences you are living. What is the context? I've been conducting research in partnership with Desjardins International Development for more than a decade. We've been together in almost 10 different countries, and I'm going to tell you the story of one of our projects in Sri Lanka, in rural Sri Lanka. So the context there was that they received this huge grant from Global Affairs Canada that they should go there and work with 5,000 rural women entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka with the mission of increasing the chances of success of those businesses. And so what we did was that we entered with them at the very beginning of the project to identify what were the main challenges they were facing, what we could do about it, and then they could scale to have an impact over 5,000 to 8,000 women entrepreneurs. So we started the project, and the methodology was, we started with a qualitative research, so 20 interviews to understand the context, and those 20 interviews showed us that there was one thing going on. People in rural Sri Lanka, they were all copying each other. If you are familiar with developing countries, you're going to know that this is not something particularly just to Sri Lanka, right? We see that in other places too. And we saw how this would undermine their chances of developing their businesses. Because if someone opens something in the main street and 3 months later we have 3 or 4 the same there, of course we don't have market for everyone. So we realized that we needed to work on creativity and innovation. Why they were not being creative and innovative? So then we came to the literature and we started to see what the literature said about it. And we realized that, okay, we have people in those contexts that actually they are quite creative, but at home. They simply do not translate that into their businesses. And there are others in the literature that say that, yeah, but if we show them role model examples, that I think we're going to hear a lot about that today, so they're going to get there. So what we said, okay, so let's work on that. And we put together an incubation process that would follow 2 different framings. One showing them that at home they are already creative when they cook and other stuff, now translated into business, and another one showing role models, showing the successful woman entrepreneur in Sri Lanka and say you can get there. What we did, a randomized trial. So we separated in 50 villages, 10 per village. We had 500 women entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka and randomly assigned 250 to one framing, 250 to another framing. And we had multiple points of data collection, baseline, during the process, and at the very end. And we would really measure how many new things they would try in their businesses. What have you found at the end? Which one do you think won? The more role model one would say that. Who would say that? Okay, just one here. Okay, 2. The other one, which is more, I'm already creative at home. Most of you? Okay, this one won. But what was the surprise for us is that more than losing to the other one, what we realized is that we had a mediator in the middle of the process, which was, what is your perception about the importance of being creative? And those who followed the role model incubation, at the end, they had a negative perception of being creative. Implications of that? Lots of implications. The people we were working in Sri Lanka, the trainers, at the very beginning of the experiment, they said, we will never teach in this other way that you were saying, like showing that at home they are creative. We've been teaching with role models for 20 years, and it works. And we would ask them, how do you know? And they said, we're very well evaluated in class. Okay? And when we discovered that, what they did, Desjardins, with the local cooperative with which we were working there, and the local university, they took the one that had more chances of success, and they replicated to 8,000 women entrepreneurs. Implications for us, I think we have lots to think about it. Because of course we are not in the same context, we're in North America, we didn't test that in North America, but we tend to love best practices, right? We tend to love to have that role model. But what we discovered after the randomized trial, because we went back and we did 50 qualitative interviews with those who changed the most from the beginning to the end, we discovered that they created this negative perception because the cognitive pathway was too far. We would ask them, what do you need to do to become this role model? They would give you 2 or 3 steps. At the 4th step, they didn't know anymore. And if they don't know the path, the cognitive capacity to get there, so they simply say, it's not for me. It's not feasible. So instead of being something positive, it becomes something that is negative. I'll leave you with that, because probably we're going to have lots to discuss with the real life examples we're going to have. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Luciano, Rob, Karen, and Sushit for your presentation. I'm Anicet Fangwa, professor in strategy at McGill Desautels, and it's my pleasure tonight to actually moderate the panel discussion that we are going to have. But just before that, just by a show of hand, who here is an entrepreneur? Just raise. Oh, great to know that. Okay, interesting, and hopefully from what you have heard so far, you can see how challenging and how insightful the discussion has been so far. Now I want us to welcome on stage 2 very successful women entrepreneurs who will actually share with us not only their inspiring career path, hopefully being positive role model in this case, but also the challenges they face and also how they overcame those challenges. So first, I want you to welcome on stage Liz Birukundavi. Please welcome her, please. She's the co-founder and managing partner of BKR Capital. Welcome, Liz. Please have a seat. Thank you very much, Liz. Like I was saying, she's the co-founder and managing partner of BKR Capital, and the first black woman in Canada to manage an institutionally backed VC fund. Congratulations for that. Liz is also an innovative finance specialist who has worked with several international institutions and is a guest lecturer for prestigious organizations including Oxford University and the Canada Private Capital Investment School at Ivy. Liz also mentor and support up and coming impactful startup in emerging market. Thank you, Liz, for being here with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And also, we have Mrs. Indira Moody, who is here with us today. Can we welcome her, please? Welcome. Thank you, Indira. So Indira is the CEO of Viande La France, a major player in animal protein production in Quebec. Indira has an engineering degree from Polytechnique Montreal, and she has spent 2 decades in the energy sector across 27 countries. She's a global leader from Harvard Business School. She's a recipient of King Charles III Coronation Medal for her significant global leadership contribution to the world, to Canada and Quebec. Indira has received several awards, including CEO of the Year 2023, by the Canadian Affaires Journal as Small and Medium Enterprise Business Entrepreneur, the Courage Award by Elevating Women 2023 USA, and Leaders Women of Exception, this one is very impressive, by the Mercurial 2023. Thank you, Indira, to be here with us.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Because of, I think the audience has one critical question, and we really like to have your point of view on that. What currently stands in the way of having a unicorn like a Google or Facebook being a black-owned company today? What's your perspective on that?
So I'll start very quick. I think that technically nothing stands in the way from an ability perspective. So we have a lot of talent in our community.
Okay.
Access to finance, is definitely one thing. And we're seeing it, so at BKR Capital, we're investing in Black-led tech companies. And our goal is to invest in the gems that exist in the ecosystem because we see that there's a funding gap. And we want to be the first ones to basically find the really, really good people in our ecosystem, invest in them, and showcase that we'll have those success stories too. But it's about access to capital because Google did not get that big without any dollars, right? Facebook as well, Uber too, and Uber is like a perfect case study of the amount of injections of money and without necessarily being profitable. It's about believing in an innovation and getting a capital for it. So access to funding and access to networks, and not necessarily just and I'm saying that with a lot of respect because accelerator programs and incubator programs are doing an amazing jobs. But like as investors, when we mean access to networks, when we are able to connect a company to a big corporation so that they can start having huge contracts, for example, that type of network, so that that allows the companies to really grow. So I think those are the two key things sometimes that we're seeing that a lot of talented entrepreneurs don't necessarily have, right? But it's changing. Like we're seeing the movement happening, we're seeing companies growing. There's a lot of unicorns right now in the US that are Black-led as well. So you have Calendly, you have Isuzu, you have a few others. And often it's about, just sharing more about those success stories because sometimes you speak about actors in the ecosystem and it feels like we're not moving because we don't know what's happening. But there's a lot of things happening. Yeah.
Thanks. First of all, let me start by thanking you for being here. Thanks for organizing this. Every February, I think we get some few calls, and we have to choose. And it's a privilege to be here and discuss that. I'm very happy to see the young generation here, the entrepreneurs, and the professors. A lot of the researchers were either opposite or right. It's a mix of everything. So thanks for organizing that, Dean. Thanks for being here. Nothing stand in the way for being an unicorn. I think it's a matter of time because we're getting more and more mature in what we're doing, right? And today, I didn't see that I was lonely, but definitely when I started, because I came in very mature when I decided to acquire the business. But today, I tell you, the ecosystem is strong, extremely strong. I see, if I see hit a barrier, I will call Liz. I will call. I saw. Where is? She's at the back. I will call Dorothy. I will call Penmark. I will call. All my friends are out there. Okay. So if I hit the road, the network is there. The ecosystem is there in Quebec, in Canada, and across the world. We even have some links with our country of origin, where they know us, they call us for, depending on which level you are, right? But I will agree, the funds, but I will disagree as well. Why? When I decided to acquire the business I acquired, I never asked myself, how much was it? Never. But I remember one thing that happened when I signed. My little sister called me, and she said, Indira, do you imagine you're a millionaire in dollar? And I said, whoa, I didn't think about it. No, it's true. I didn't think about it. But I knew that by presenting a business case, I will get the funding. So, and as a matter of fact, when I presented the business case, I got about 10 or 11 investors around the table together. Okay. I was ready that day. Okay. And I had two of them, big one, that were supposed to be in pari passu, meaning that the other one will get some of the part of the investment and they will have the big box and half-half. By the time I finished presenting with the team I presented, they were fighting who's going to invest in me. Oh, wow. So you're investing on who? On the idea, on the risk management, on the leaders are there, on the person that is the entrepreneur. And they didn't see that brand at that time. Well, I didn't realize that, but the reality is that what's standing between the unicorn and us is the courage, find the right partners, fight for it. At the end, what Google the owner of that own only 4%.
That's true.
Uber, same thing. The leader of that own only what? 3, 4, 5%. I don't know the word. But they got the strategic partners to get in there. I think it's just to get the idea, to go after it, to call Liz, because she will make sure that you know you.
And she has the money to fund it, yes.
Voila. and let's go for it. Voila, I think that's what it takes.
Thank you very much for highlighting the fact that it's possible. I think it's a very strong message that the community needs to hear, that we can actually achieve it, and it's possible, it's doable. But I just want to come back to the access to capital that you mentioned, Liz, because to my surprise, BKR Capital is the only VC fund dedicated to Black entrepreneurs. I was lucky to engage with a study by Will Steagen, who actually showed me that in the ecosystem of VC funds today, we have so many different funds dedicated to minorities, but only BKR is dedicated to Black people. Is it because that particular population is more risky? What is it? Why only BKR? And what can we do to make sure we have many more BKR than today or in the future?
I think I would reframe your question,
okay.
Or your perspective. So we're the first.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you for that.
So meaning that eventually there will be others. And to a certain extent, I'm not necessarily sure there needs to be so many more. Right? The way we basically see ourselves and the way we tagged ourselves is more the first Black-led VC fund managing institutional dollars.
Not the only.
But so there's a small difference. You know, there's our focus, the fact that we're investing in Black-led companies, which is how we build our fund. But when we actually raised, one of our LP said, I think you're the first GP we have invested in that is led by a Black person, right? Regardless of the strategy. Then we started looking at the ecosystem, at the hundreds of funds that exist in Canada that are funded by institutions, and we're the only one. Doesn't mean that there's no Black people in finance, but we're only the Black-led VC fund. And why we're saying that is because it was in 2021, which was very surprising, right? And what we have sort of given ourselves as a mission is to make sure that there's going to be many more. And regardless of what the strategy is for a fund that is led by a diverse group, you will see a diverse portfolio or a diverse pipeline. So you don't necessarily need to have that specific strategy to be able to touch the population at large. So that's how we're seeing it.
Okay.
Because we all have a bias, we all have a good understanding of, of different walks of life, and we're able to spot those opportunities when we understand them very well. So that's, I guess, a part answer to your question. And the second part, with respect to why we at that time decided to have that focus, is because we saw the funding gap. The funding gap is just intense, right?
Can you speak a little bit more into that? Yes.
I mean, I've worked in investment for about over 15 years, same as my business partner. He was an angel, a business angel, and he invested in some of the success stories here in Canada. I invested here, I invested on the African continent, in a lot of emerging markets as well, in Asia and Latin America. Something that we both have seen in our respective experience is that we're seeing Black entrepreneurs pitching and not necessarily being heard, right? Really good opportunities, but not necessarily getting funded. So we wanted to be part of that solution, not from a charitable perspective, but really from it's a strategy, right? So we're seeing talent that's there, and that's how you craft a strategy. If you're investing in fintech, you have to showcase that you have the ability to get the best entrepreneurs in the financial technology industry. We believe that we can find the best Black founders and showcase what is being missed by the ecosystem. And at some point, as people are paying attention to what we're doing, we hope that at some point we won't be needed, or such a strategy won't be needed. We've been able to leverage our dollars very well. So for $1 invested in a company, we've been able to get 5 others from the ecosystem, because other VC funds also get excited by the deals that we are investing in, and they don't have our focus. And so that's our goal. We want to see more Black-led VC funds having a focus on the Black community, not necessarily, but making sure that more funds invest in the Black community is really what we feel success is.
So basically, my understanding is that you actually act like this lens which goes into the ecosystem of Black entrepreneur and find the hidden gems and be able to bring it into light so that other funds can also contribute and participate.
Our objective is to find the best and yeah.
Okay, great.
They are bridging the gap of the void. There's a real void. Like I can see that now that she's talking about that. And I want to emphasize the fact that, for example, in my business, and we acquired 13 years ago, and we don't have any Black funds in our business. That was 2011, 2012. BKR was not there yet. Not to say that we don't need it. It's a much needed, which is something extremely important. They pitch, but they're not being listened. Why? Because they don't look like the others. They have the people from the diversity see things in a different perspective. And then we have several professors that say that, right? And that perspective have an opportunity that is not looked at. And this is what they saw. And there's a complete void there. So yes, there is a need of having such kind of capital to be present. But then, l'exception fait la règle. Hein? In my case, I didn't have any Black fund. The fact that we were able to pitch it and get it sure that they got it made a difference.
Maybe one question to just to be the voice of the entrepreneur in the room. Let's say I'm an entrepreneur right now, listening to what you just said. What will be your advice about how I should frame my pitch? What should be in it? What technical level do I need to get? Or maybe is there a training that you can recommend or something like that? What is it that I need to do today as an entrepreneur, now knowing that some people are bridging the gap, the void of access to capital? What is it that I need to acquire to make sure that I can have access to that?
I think that first and foremost, you need to understand what you need, right, as an entrepreneur, because not all funding is made equal, right? So we're a venture capital fund, so we invest in fast-growing tech startups. You know, we're supposed to have Tiffany here from FACE. They provide loans to entrepreneurs, right, which is different than, because we take part ownership, you know. So if you're somebody who wants to run a lifestyle business and you grow, have a few $1 million per year and just be happy and give your business back to your family at some point, like for your children, let's say, VC is not the right funding for you, because we will be like, you know, behind you and being like, how come you're not making $100 million per year? How come you're not growing faster? And like the whole goal is to sell to somebody else, right? But you know, a lender is happy to look at your, and we also invest, we take much more risk because we invest often based on an idea, so it's less concrete. Versus a lender, if you have enough proof points, they're able to look at you and sort of say, well, we're investing, and regardless of your success, we're getting that money back, so, you know, we want to have your house, you know, as a guarantee or anything else. So you have different types of ecosystem players, and you have to understand what you want first before you actually go and speak to the different investors. And then even from the venture capital space, there are different strategies, right? So for example, I used to be a EdTech investor, and I would have some people in agriculture coming to me and pitch. And it was both a waste of time for myself and for them, right? So having an understanding of, you know, what people are focused on, first and foremost. Like we have a specific focus, for example, at BKR, and we do have on a regular basis people outside of that focus coming in trying to pitch to us as well. And so those will be first and foremost what you should know. Then afterwards, really having a lived experience and building with your customers is the second thing I would give an advice to any entrepreneur. Often you have people building products without necessarily really understand what it takes to be successful in a space. And especially with the early stages at which we come at pre-seed and seed.
Can you explain a little bit what does it mean, pre-seed and seed?
It's basically some of the stages of investment in a tech space. So it's very early stage. So pre-seed could be almost idea stage. Seed, you have a product, but you don't necessarily, you know, you don't have that much revenue, right? But when we're saying, you know, we're investing almost at idea stage, we do it with people who have enough credibility in the space so that we know that, once the product is built, it will skyrocket, right? So that's how we're thinking of it.
Okay. Yeah, she talked about, Liz talked about like the more technical and finance side of it. What about you, Indira? What about the amount of work? You mentioned that in your pitch, everybody wanted to invest, but can you walk us backward? Like, what was the amount of work you put in to actually craft your pitch to be compelling? Yeah.
So first of all, you make the pitch to the right audience. She said it.
Exactly.
Okay. So I had to choose who will be around the table to make sure that it's something that will talk to them. And at that time, remember we're in 2011, right? At that time, the notion of networking is not the same as today, right? So, and I don't know if you know our story of Vienne La France is located in Shawinigan. I always have to say Shawinigan. That's apartments. I grew up in Montreal. I love Montreal. It's the best way to study and to grow, but living is Shawinigan. So, in the village, it was clear to me that I had to get involved the finance people that are around in the region. So I started looking. So Ville de Shawinigan had some funds. I took them there. SADC is a local community development that invests into a local company. I got them there. I had the CLSD, local development. I got them there. And basically I got about, I don't know, 200 of each one of them. But of course, it's their money out there. So they're going to help me. I have no choice. I mean, it's part of the business. So I got the big one, I think, Desjardins, to fund the big loan. And each one of them, I had FTQ. FTQ was, I think, at that time, was doing part of Entrepreneurship, giving a little bit of funds. So them also, they have to help me. So, and after the first 3 years, I was concentrated because all of them were maybe a little bit higher rates than the big loans. So, of course, I took 2-3 years to get them out of there. And I took a little bit of capital risk, higher rate as well. So I quickly worked in the first years to get them there and go to the loan that has less rates.
Okay.
But the strategy has been to get them on board so that they help me. They have no choice. If I had a problem, they have to be there. They have to be in their money is in there, right?
Okay.
So that's what the strategy. But then they listen to it. And there's one thing I did is I used the universal language.
Which is?
I was ready.
Okay.
I tell you. You see the 5-minute speech they did? They were ready. So if they respected this, I was here. So I had a folder which that was very well arranged. I remember the 2 days before I had all my family that were there. Everybody was printing, arranging, putting names and all the name of the leader, his name. When he received a folder with his name on it, he opened. He never saw something like that.
Okay.
You know,
The
I
level
was
of preparation was
man,
high.
I was top notch. Top notch. I got my partner who is an engineer and PhD holder. He was in Paris. I got him in VC. I got my CFO, she was not there as well. I got her in VC as well. I had my slides on. And you know what, ladies? I was pregnant. So I came in here with my very big, my stomach was so big, I tell you, the door was not passing there. I was huge. Came in there, and then I remember that there was 2 ladies there. I came in, I used the seduction. I came in with a rose. Each ladies had their rose.
Oh, wow.
I was on time, and I rocked it. I mean, big school in McGill, HEC, Polytechnique, we are hard rock. So I didn't let them a chance. By the time I finished there, they never saw a presentation like that. Of course, they had to choose me. You understand? So I love some of, entrepreneurship is a vocation. It is true that there's a lot of preaching saying that, we can't do it without studying. I'm from the part that did it with studying. And my background of industrial engineering has a lot to do with entrepreneurship, right? So I use those tools, that knowledge, to be very well on the on the high side, and to ensure that I convince. When I say I have to go and convince somebody, I do my homework. That's what I was taught at school, to be prepared, right? So don't pitch to someone that is not ready to have it. Because, by the way, it's true that we look different, so what? But get it right the first time, and you will get it. You will get it.
Thank you for these encouraging words. But why do you think that entrepreneurship is not that common in the community? Like, why don't we have more people engaging with existing companies and try to acquire them in order to go a little bit faster?
I think it's unknown. And then I realized that I have no choice. Sometimes I don't have time, but I have to take the time to show the model that exists. Okay, I got to know that because I was in the corporate world, and I was involved in merger and acquisition. I was fortunate out of good work. I was brought up to Harvard by one of the corporation where I was working. They took the 30 best leaders that I wanted to look for the CEO. And I was there, and then I met the professor. I love staying with professors. When I see professor, my heart is moved. I will be an éternel étudiant. So the professor of M&A, I stood in his class. I mean, I saw the equations, acquisitions, and merger, and culture, and how you get the small, like a Pac-Man, the small one bite the big one, or the small one acquire the big one, and how they do that. And it's true. M&A, when I say M&A, you know, a merger and acquisition happen between companies, right? Competitors acquire the other one. And then it's true that you don't see an individual that is waking up in the morning and say, I'm going to go and acquire a big company. You don't do that, right?
Not often, yeah.
Yeah, not often. But then my story has to do with the fact that I decided to create African suppliers, and we can, if you ask me the question, I will tell you why. But so that business is created in 2002, 2003, came in out of something. And the vision of that, the word African suppliers, to supply Africa by the African product. And I saw very early that one of the reasons this was not happening is because we didn't have the quality of the product that was supplied by the other countries. I said, okay, let's work on the quality process. Remember, my roots, I'm an industrial engineer that is rooted into quality processes. So fine, we certified few companies to become ISO 9001, whatever certification they needed, right? I'm in the food sector. The first norm in the food sector is HACCP, Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. So I'm a specialist on quality and ensuring that you foster businesses by getting them to the quality process where they can get either more businesses or etc. So as I was doing African suppliers, it was not going fast enough. And remember, at that time, I was flexipreneur. I was in the corporate world and having my own business. And I'm somebody that go fast, extremely fast in business. So I was like, man, I'm only getting one contract, two contracts. What the heck is going on here? I need to go faster as an individual for my own business, right? And then I went in that course, seeing Professor M&A. I said, so I can acquire a business? He said, yes, of course. So how do you equation? I brought a big book like that, love books, and I started reading equation. So okay, let's go and find a business. And it was hard to find a business. And as an individual who is, individuals buying is not buying a barbershop, or is buying a manufacturer with, that has a product, and in this case has a product since 1929, 100-fold business. So basically, I got myself a CFO, I got myself a COO, I got myself technical advisors, and we started looking for businesses to acquire. So I almost acquired a business that was Unilever, that was vesting one of the country. This is a good idea. In a lot of countries, we have multinational that, are divesting. We just saw Deloitte divesting with MNP. And MNP, some few principals that acquired it. They own that now. So it's feasible, but you have to get the idea and you have to start looking for it, right? And also, when you find it, you have to have the capital. So in here, myself, I gauged 20 years of work, which is basically my first retirement. I took that, I put in there, put a lot of effort, and then you work on that. So why are people not thinking about entrepreneurship? It's, you have to think big. You have to have no fear. You have to be courageous. You have to wanting it. Yeah, you have to be resilient, and then courage.
Pendant notre conversation, tu m'as parlé aussi du processus d'effectuation. Est-ce que tu pourrais nous en dire un peu quelques mots?
Yeah, I didn't know that word. Some of you know Professor Felix, right? Zoning. Tell him it's his fault. He took me to a conference, professor, and then he got another professor who was present. I love professors. Then he got another professor that shows us. This is Sarah. Sarah, she haven't. Voila. So Sarah was speaking, and she said, you know, you're a mom or a father, you want to cook. You open your fridge, you say that you want to do, you said you want to do pasta with something, and then you open it, and there's no pasta. But then you have milk, you have this, you have that, and then you find a way to cook something that looks almost like you want, but you've been creative. And that's an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur, we don't have the problems. Yeah, if you look at the situation that happened to the last 48 hours about yes or no, we go to the US, we don't go to the US. I mean, you can see what's going on in the entrepreneur's head. You look for backup plans. You look for, okay, what do you do? How are you going to do this? And then you cross to that. You look at COVID. So many businesses were able to cross to. Some died, yeah, but a lot of them came to cross it. And then, but you find solutions, yeah? And then you're able to cross path. And let me give you a story of mine in our business. So we do, who, let me put it this way. Who don't eat meat here? Raise your hand. Okay, so we have about 5, 6 hands. The other one you do. And we remember that some of them, you don't eat meat for a lot of reasons. It can be stomach or whatever. So I do responsible protein, right? Animal protein. And so we take care of the skin. And the skin has a second life. And as the COVID started 2 months after, the company that were taking the skin disappeared, closed, finished. Okay? So you can imagine if you don't know what to do with the skins, you basically cannot work. Because after 1 day of work, you need to take care of the skins. And that was my problem. I woke up in the morning on Monday. Oh my God. So then I knew that by Wednesday, I have to stop producing. The whole production. I have about 40 people. Where do I put them? And I have to work. So we have to find the solutions. And then your brain goes into calling the mayor, calling this thing, and then calling the municipality, calling the environmental, calling the ministry. And then you had them to do a process that will allow you to find a solution. But this is a major problem in a business because suddenly a whole manufacturing with 40 people can get to work. Suddenly 20 customers don't get their goods. Suddenly 40 farmers don't know what to do. But you have to find a solution. And you find a solution, by the way, when you pass across. So that's the fluctuation.
Okay, thank you.
It's being very, very agile in finding solutions. And each entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs are here. I saw a few. Will you agree that we face problem in the morning, we don't know what is it, but we sleep at the night and then we find a solution. Voila.
Thank you very much, Indira. I just want to bring the conversation back to the topic of the day, like black woman entrepreneurship. And Professor Rob Nason introduced us to his study, who actually showcased several strategies that black entrepreneurs adopt when trying to mitigate the two identity they have, being black and being an entrepreneur. And my question to you is, how have you personally navigated that? How were you able to wrestle with your different identity, basically being black, being an entrepreneur? What was your strategy on the day-to-day basis? Or how do you look at the world on that topic?
It's an interesting question, and I'm sorry I missed that part of the presentation. It's just part of your identity, so it's not even as if you can choose how you basically live with one or the other, live with your gender, with your racial background, or the fact that you chose entrepreneurship. I think that from my perspective, because we invest in entrepreneurs, but we are entrepreneurs as well. I mean, this is our fund, so we're sort of running like 13 businesses, you know, our portfolio companies, plus like, you know, 3 businesses in one within the fund. So it's quite stressful. And I think you just go in as yourself. You know, I was listening to Indira and like she's a real entrepreneur, you know? It's just like you don't, like you sort of forget everything. It's just about like it's winning or winning, and you just like move forward and you just like knock off all the obstacles in front of you. And so sometimes, you know, what we sort of say is that there's a lot of desire for entrepreneurship until you understand really what it is, because it's one of the hardest things in the world. And some people really are just, you know, are prefer working for others, which is also good because entrepreneurs cannot do it alone, right? But like you see, like the real entrepreneurs are just like sleeping their business, you know, like they wake up in the morning, they have the idea, like they're like walking, you know, they, like, you know, with their children playing, and they're still thinking about their business in the back of their head. Okay. And so that's also who we are. And so you're coming into a business meeting or you have objectives. It's no longer about your gender or the color of your skin. It's about what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So obviously you understand that, you know, in some of the interactions, people are seeing you a certain way or treating you a certain way, and you don't necessarily like we see why, but this takes a second place in terms of your objective. You can, so I'm the type of person, there's always like a plan B, C, D, E, F, G. So it's just like, okay, like door A closed, I don't even have time to think about it, I'm at door B, right? And it's just basically I keep on going. Okay. Or sometimes you just understand the dynamics and you see how you can sort of not necessarily play along, but, you know, push aside what doesn't serve you and just move forward, right? So that's really how we're seeing it. That doesn't mean that as a society we need to ignore and not solve the issues, but I think that's how a lot of people navigate around the circumstances.
Okay, but please, Indira, allow me to ask some question, because I know exactly what you're going to say. Yeah, Liz, that's your perspective, and it's very great that you have this self-awareness and this capability to move forward regardless of what people throw at you, and from my understanding is basically what makes an entrepreneur. But what can we say to people who still look forward to being entrepreneurs but still are confronted with those type of obstacles and may not have the self-perception that you have?
The world is unkind. You have to, no, but that's true. That's true, no, but that's true. The word is unkind, right? So even, I mean, entrepreneurship is hard for everyone, regardless, right? So it's hard for every single one, regardless of how you look like, right? And you will, the type of issues that you will encounter, nothing is fair. So you actually have to build that thick skin.
And forget about victimhood mentality
and I would not even call it that, right? But it's, you know, I think that there's a lot of narrative around people being tired of the association of blackness and resilience, but it's actually a superpower. Oh. I think it's a superpower for our community, because without necessarily wanting it, you get through in front of so many situations where you encounter biases, you like, you know, the small microaggression that you've heard, you've understood, but you're just like going forward, right? And this builds a lot of resilience that sometimes other communities are not necessarily used to. Like you go in a room, you're the only one looking like yourself and you have no problem, right? And so this is a superpower, and you should basically use that to just grow more strength, because again, business is, you know, it's tough, and, you know, people are sharks, especially when it comes to money. People are sharks when it comes to in any field, right? So use your superpower of resilience and go in there. Like, don't expect anybody to give you a fair treatment. Again, I'm not saying that because I think that we should not change the ecosystem. I do believe that we should change the ecosystem, but as it's changing, I don't think we should be waiting. I think we should still move forward and build.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Indira, for your patience.
I can be fast and very patient. So go ask the question, or the word I'm gonna say it.
So yeah, basically, what's your perspective on our blackness and what to do about it?
Listen, I have to tell you that story because I told him the story. Yeah? As I was in Shawinigan, I so much heard that word, immigrant and black, in 2-3 years, and I never heard in my life, that I had to go and ask this question to Emily. Emily has been in the business. She's from Quebec. She's from nearby Saint-Séverin, and has been in the business since we acquired it. And I said, Emily, you have to answer me this question. And I'm sorry, I don't want to vex you, but I need to understand something that is extremely important to me. She said, what, Indira? She's our accountant. And I asked her, am I an immigrant? Yeah, I had to ask the question because there were so many questions about it that people were asking me that I couldn't understand. I grew up in Montreal here. Je me vois pas comme une immigrante, je suis un humain. I'm a human. For my parents, I don't know. I have always been my parents are medical doctor. I've always been with them. I don't know. They end up in the United Nations where I've been with all president or this or that. I didn't get it. And I had to put myself in their eyes to understand what they were saying about being black. So as a matter of fact, we have people from HEC, see, the first time I came in a panel of black is when, again, a school called me. My very good friend, Daphne Belizer from HEC, called me and said, Indira, come, let's get a panel, a black thing. I said, black thing, what's going on here? What is your problem, guys? I couldn't get it. Je comprenais pas. But because she was my friend, and because I respect her, then I actually said, I'm coming. And by the way, that's why I'm here. This is McGill. I received several calls, but I own it to the respect I get to schooling, to education, to my friends that calls me, and then I see a difference. We can't get away of this. So when I decide, and maybe that's actually ça m'a joué un tour. I don't know how to say that in English, because when I decided to acquire Viande La France, of course I didn't know a lot of things. Because of my background, I said, if I acquire something with a shirt or a glass or a phone, I will make it. It's working hard. And by the way, with the corporation, I was already working 80 hours a week. So if I put 80 hours, I know how to work in my own business. Well, it won't work. It will work. Of course it will work. I didn't see any barrier there. But I was completely biased by not seeing my color and that I was a woman.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your family background and why you don't see yourself?
The reason I don't see that is because my parents are medical doctors and they are very, very empathic. They are here for the population. They are here, they will serve anybody. That's at home. You know, we have received so many people across. So I was not brought up to see differences. I don't know that. I was brought up just, voila. And by the way, one fantastic thing with my parents, every year they will make us, on vacation we had to travel, right? It was part of what they put out in us and what they believe in. So by the time I was 10, I remember that we went to France, visited Lourdes, where we make the pilgrimage, one of the pilgrimage for the Catholics. And then the year after, we were in Kuwait, and then they brought us to Saudi, where we went to visit Mecca. And then I had to read the Torah. And I remember at 11 years old, I asked my dad, because we grew up they put us in Catholic primary school. And from my father's side, my grandmother was Muslim, so I would pray with her, And from my mother's side, my grandfather was Hindu. And his wife was Protestant, she's my grandmother. I walk with her and go to church. I don't see anything. For me, it's normal. Everybody, there's right, wrong. I was taught, but I grew up in all this mixed, and I grew up with a lot of traveling. And I was born in Algeria, and my mother from here, and was speaking every language, speaking 5 languages by the time I was 5 years old. So it's normal. By the time I hit the road of being an adult mature, I did not realize so much biases. And remember, I come in from the corporate world that made me. In that corporate world, the only thing that talks is work. So my boss will ask me 5 things in 3 months, I will deliver him 10 things in 1 month and a half. So I'm a high performer. So as a high performer, I was performing. So as a high performer, I got all the excess jobs that were available. You know, I was CEO very young. I was in the high rock because I was managing and leading thousands of persons. I was 30 years old when I was managing 12 director, hiring 3,000 people a year with my team, managing this for 30,000 people, you know. So I was exposed very young. And I didn't see also the bias of the salaries because I was high performing, I was paid right. So I didn't see that. So when I came into the world of entrepreneurs, where I was in a village and the only black, I hit the road. I hit a wall that was, for me, non-existent, right? And maybe that's what saved us. Because I didn't, because I was hearing people asking me, then that's how I started to ask myself, and I say, oh, okay, that's what they see. Ah, okay, so let me help them. Okay. And then, if I'm in the village where I grew up, where my kids are grown up now, San Boniface, 3,000 people, I hit, for example, an old lady that will ask me, where do you come from? But I will tell her, but I come from Montreal. I will help her to understand. But because now I realize that we are the ones that are there to educate and help people to pass through these barriers. So that's my reality. And I realize that I'm privileged to deeply. Yeah, deeply. And then now I educate my kids not to see. By the way, I'm married to an Asian French. So you can imagine my kids, and I educate them. I force them. They're learning. The four of them, they are learning Mandarin now. I don't know a word about that. So we have a very good one here.
Yes.
I will stop talking because I can talk forever.
Okay.
Did I answer your question?
Definitely yes. Wow. Okay. Yeah, let's see in the audience if anyone has a question. Oh wow, several. Okay. Let's start with the ladies. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Chennai, and I had a question about, I don't know if your name is Lise. Elise, sorry. Sorry, I came late, I had class. But I noticed that your company, or that you're managing partner of, focuses on investing in technological startups about Black people. I was wondering, I was just looking at, I was just learning in one of my classes about how women in organizations that are fighting for a group of people, how they advocate within those spaces. And I was just wondering how you, as a Black woman, how you navigate advocating for Black women in a space that really focuses on Black people in general and can also tend to focus on the people that might not have that intersectionality.
That's a good question. So basically how we're thinking about the gender lens, right? So we all have biases, right, as human beings. My co-founder is a Black man, I'm a Black woman, and we're partners in this, and my bias is towards Black women. So we're a lot of employees, contributors that are women, and every time we create a committee, I will spot if there's a gender imbalance. And it's not that we have to advocate, we're co-creating everything together, so it becomes natural. Unfortunately, we don't have as many. So I think we're at maybe 43% co-founders/founders that are female in our portfolio. Again, we don't have that gender lens. We're basically looking at the best founders, and diversity, I think, is what's the best. When you have diversity in decision making, you don't necessarily have to speak too much for the results to happen in your work. At least that's our experience with it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Liz. Another question down here. Yes.
Oh, hi, Liz and Indira. Thank you very much for being here, and I guess I'll stand. So I guess my question is for both of you, but Lise, you mentioned how important it is to, in a way, lead by example in terms of shifting the way that funders basically view the opportunities that abound in underserved and overlooked communities. So my question for you is, what would you say is the best way to go about changing the minds of some of the large stakeholders and large funders in the ecosystem so that they are able to see more of what you see, so we don't necessarily need to have 50 more BKR capitals, but that every other VC is able to broaden their lens? So what's the best from your experience so far and going forward?
That's a really good question. Thank you for this, because it's one that we ask ourselves often, right? I think as a community, and not just from our perspective, but also from the perspective of women-focused funds, right? There's so many research reports saying that diverse teams, are overperform. There's a lot of conversations around increasing diversity, and our own conclusion at BKR is really through performance. Let's just focus and build with our companies, and the more we're able to create strategic connections and help them grow, you can't say anything against performance. You can talk about ideas, you can talk about theories, you can talk about reports, but if you have a company that's just winning and having revenues and growing and expanding, you cannot have different opinions about it, right? So that's what we're focused on personally. And when we are even, looking at getting co-investors, we're showcasing the facts, the metrics, the potential that is there with the companies that we are investing in. And often that's enough, right? So, but, there's a piece of that too, where we have to give ourselves some grace, especially for the Black community, because there's been some, federal programming that started in 2021, the Black Entrepreneurship loan programs, where a lot of really good ecosystem actors got funding, and the ecosystem has evolved since then, but it's been only a few years, right? So last year, the CVC, Canadian Venture Capital Association, celebrated their 50th anniversary, 50. And Canada is a young ecosystem in terms of venture capital. We're very young. But we celebrate our 50th anniversary. It's been, 3-4 years for the Black ecosystem, Black entrepreneurial ecosystem, with as much resources as what we have today, which is still very little when we think about it. In the grand scheme of things, we're like, okay, hundreds of millions of dollars, that's nothing for a lot of people, right? So we have to be patient. We have to give ourselves some grace and seeing how the ecosystem is evolving. I was going to events very early when this started, the ones that were organized by the ecosystems. And I had doubts. I was looking at, what was happening, and I was like, what, let me go back to my pipeline. And now more and more, I'm seeing, the entrepreneurs have pivoted. The conversations are shifting. You're seeing a bit more, it's becoming a bit more convincing, right? So it is exciting to see what's happening in this space, but we have to give ourselves some grace and be patient. And results will speak for themselves. That's what I believe.
If I may add in 1 minute, one element that I think we need to work on the shift is the fact that, investors will look a lot about the numbers. But the wealth creation we could do by getting some business going and just, break through and just get things going and ensuring that, we don't let... That's and now is more of the global leader than the entrepreneur talking. But in myself, I'm a global leader and entrepreneurs together. So I am 100% convinced that making money out of not taking care of people on earth, we are looking for trouble. That extreme capitalism, I am not in that. And to the extent that I will choose an investor who will ask me only my numbers. I will choose. I won't go with them. Okay, we need to shift, and we consumer have a say on that. I have a lot of investors that will come. They want to work with me, fine. But if you only look at my number, if you look at whatever we've done in the 13 years, nobody else will have done that if there was focus only on money. And now the result of that is incredible. We brought in community, you know, we take care of some farms that will have closed by now if we didn't do what we had to do. We moved into federal inspections that took several $1 million to get there, which nobody else in Canada has done that. But we decided it's the right thing to do. We've done it. And then, of course, we put ourselves in the map in a different manner. Did I left a little bit of money on the table? Yeah, of course. So at the end, it's a great story. It's a great future. We are showing models for the others. So I think diversity, and not only blacks, diversity, women, people from a mix of people, bring ideas that could go much, much longer on the run than money on the short run. And this, I thought COVID will help us pass through that. And no, it didn't. Now this US pricing going on here is shocking everybody. Of course, we have to think on the learn, because when you think about it only for money, you are making some great mistakes. I will talk about my sector, meat sector. Fine, we have farmers here because they have plenty animals. To get to the scales of just money, they will have the animals transport to the US to get them self-processed there and back in here. This is what they said in 21 days, we're going to get the price of the meats coming back here that will be taxed. But guess what? They could process it locally. But because they are looking at the rates of US, Canada, they will go there. But, I mean, and then do you take care of the well-being of animals? Do you take care of the earth, the way animals are being brought up? You see, so you have to think wisely. You have to think long run. You have to think not only money, and growing your business only in a non-sustainable manner doesn't make sense. And I will stop here.
But maybe I'll add just something very quickly to that, because I think that this highlights also a good point of discussion with stakeholders generally, is that when we talk about investing in diversity at large, we're not talking about just for the well-being of diversity, right? So we're talking about the well-being of the whole Canadian ecosystem, really. So we have talent everywhere. And if you don't bring the best talent to the table to solve big problems, we're all losing. It's not just about, okay, we're doing this for the Black community. We're doing this for the Canadian ecosystem, really, right?
Yes.
Thank you. What struck me from the discussions tonight, in particular, that 81% of women, black Thank you. 81% of women, black entrepreneurs are self-funded. The strong emphasis on social impact and returning to this society hearkened to me the socioeconomic structures that were suggested by W.E.B. Du Bois some time ago, apparently ahead of his time. And noting the diversity of the African diaspora and its inhomogeneity, this is not surprising. But my question to the panel and anyone else who wants to comment on this is, what can be learned in light of what was mentioned about Sri Lanka from the informal economies in the Caribbean, the artisanal economies in Africa, about bridging the gap between those who are able to take the lead, the top tens who can filter their effect through the community and through society, and let me say more nascent participants in the economy who, I would say, who need less capital to take flight and would be able to partner through some sort of mechanism, perhaps venture capital, to bring about social change and social integration. That's the best I can ask. Thank you.
Thanks. Where's gonna go? So he brings a big point, and the big and the small, SMEs and major, the merge of that is extremely difficult, right? extremely difficult. And I was at a COP28 where I went in there, particularly as an SME, and I'm looking for partnership with the big one for them to understand. And I position ourselves as being the decarbonation model in the animal protein sector. And I'm convinced of that. You know, you rather work with smaller farms that do families kind of breeding and being able to process it locally and consume it locally. I'm convinced of that, and I've seen so many researchers to ensure that what we do, it's the right thing to do. And by the way, we do it with the highest quality, just like the big one. So we can, you know, go to anywhere like the big one. And the point of having the big one to look at the small one, it's hard, hard, hard. It's just like the way you're walking and you don't see the ants. I swear, it's as hard as that. And it's even further hard where the locals, very small niche that are doing things, are not being seen. So it's we again, we the consumer. More we're gonna talk about that, more we're gonna request that, more the big one will hear it, that we want to know what we consume, be it phones, electricity, water, meat process. If the consumer requests that, then the major have no choice to just look for those local things to be made and be put in out there. It's one of the hardest things of my own career, particularly that I went from global to local, and I am now looking at local. And by the way, we have no choice due to this climate change, and due to, you know, I remember that when I left university, I was told, you know, to make things cheaper, you have to go far and make it bigger and less cost. And we didn't think at that time at the effective costs of doing that. Today we have the answer, the transportation, the fact that we process in a word ethical is too young. Yeah, but sometimes, you know, that big processes just don't make sense anymore. That wealth, we can bring it back for a lot of items. I don't say all, and I'm not against globalization. I'm just saying that it went too far. And now we have to reverse the process for a lot of products that can be done locally. And I will finish up with that. In the meat processing process, we have land here in Canada, we have water, and we have the know-how. So we don't need to import any meats. It's just the no-brainer. We have farmers, but today we import it. Yeah? So if we consumer and the policy makers, we agree on the fact that, you know, there's things that make sense, we'll stop doing nonsense. So thanks for great questions.
Maybe I'll approach it from also an angle in terms of what I understood were the different needs of the ecosystem. And I do believe that, you know, you're right in saying that there's so many people who are looking at doing different types of businesses, and that you need different types of instruments. So there's an inherent diversity in every single spaces where you are in, and there's never one solution for everybody. So it's good to have a diverse ecosystem with diverse products and people who work together. And also this notion of, you know, for us, by us, right? So if you're a specific community, you understand your own needs, you're able to basically craft the solutions that are needed for you. Having a business that is focused more on social impact, that wants to do good, that wants to create value for its community, you should have the ecosystem that supports that, because you're probably not the only one that wants to do that in your environment. You have others that are made that wants to basically grow fast and just, you know, becoming extremely big. Then you have other types of financing, and we can all coexist, right? And it's just about creating the right type of ecosystem. And that's what we're doing, I think. Right now, we're already working on this, and I think we're being pretty successful, especially in Ontario. But I'm seeing that Quebec is catching up.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
And we're spending more time in Quebec as well. You know, we're sort of creating more and more partnership, because from a pipeline perspective, you know, Ontario, obviously, that's where most of the Black population is. But, you know, second is Quebec. So we have our office here, and we're looking at investing. A third of our portfolio companies are here right now, and we're looking at doing more, right? Because there's so much down here.
And they are among us today, your potential partners. So yeah, thank you very much for all those great answers. As a closing statement, what will be your advice for a young black woman entrepreneur in the room or in general? What will be, looking into the future, what do you want to say to such a person?
That's a very good question, and I think it's about, you know, I like Indira's life story, and I feel like mine is a little bit, it's similar but in different ways. Like, you were brought up so that you didn't see the difference. I think I've always been like selectively blind, right? So, you know, we talk about a glass ceiling, we talk about closed doors, and it's really about, you know, understanding what you want and going for it. So, you know, choose blindness when you can and just like go for it. You know, that would be my advice.
Thank you, Liz.
So, you know, nowadays you have role models. Yeah, it exists here, there, and that's why we take our time to be here today, right? And funny enough, we have role models in front of us that we look at, right? I mean, plenty. There's Oprah, and why am I speaking of Oprah? Because, of course, as the same way we touch like this, we can touch Oprah. So there's links now. It's over. We are there. So please take your place. Prenez votre place. It's unoccupied. and then if there is another advice I will give you while doing that, I've been an entrepreneur. Enjoy your time. It's hard. It is hard. But then enjoy your time. Because it's a journey, it's a life journey. If at the end you make it through and then you didn't enjoy it, so your kids didn't make it, that's not fun, right? So take the time to take care of yourself. Yourself and your body is the most important thing, because if you're not fine, you can't take care of the business, neither your family or otherwise. So you don't need that issue of breaking out or, no, forget about that. If my generation didn't need that, you don't need that, okay? so please, there's enough resources out there. There's an ecosystem out there. If you're a true entrepreneur, go for it. And never know that the professors are there. We are here. We can't answer all the doors. I receive 100,000 demands. I cannot answer all of them. But I mean, there's plenty others. And then we try, you know, to ensure that we help where we can help. And then you will make it through. You will make it. The resilience that we have as black people or people issue from diversity, it's true, it's real. We have a resilience that is incredible. Go for it. Voilà.
Thank you very much once again, Indira and Liz. Thank you to the audience as well for your time and your question. Now we'll have a bit of a time to actually thank more formally our panelists and the researcher, because we have prepared some gift for you. And we will have a time to network and discuss afterwards. Thank you very much. Nikita?
I'm here mainly to say thank you. As you can imagine, these types of events don't just happen. They happen as a result of a lot of work from many contributors. So thank you to our wonderful panelists and to the researchers who presented their work. Thank you for all the insights you shared. A huge thank you to our fearless leader, Dean Chan, for your support of the Laidley Center, for being such a champion of equity, diversity, and inclusion in our community. Very much appreciated. We did this in collaboration with the McGill Black Alumni Association, so thank you to Kay Das and her team for supporting us. Our Laidley Center Director, Lindsay Holmgren, who let me, Joy, and Anisette just run with the idea once we generated it and gave us the room to explore and grow. Joelle Moses. If you're in this room, it is likely because Joelle sent you an email or many emails. She was relentless. She found all sorts of Black organizations online, emailed all across campus. Thank you, Joelle, for all the work you do in outreaching for us. She also did LinkedIn messages. She was all over the place. Jonathan and his AV team, Kim and the event support staff here at Desautels, Zara for helping keep our event on time, And thank you to you, the audience, for taking time to be here. You have many choices and things to do, especially at Black History Month. But you chose us, and we are so happy. And last but certainly not least, thank you to our benefactor, BCom alumnus David Laidley. The Laidley Center for Business Ethics and Equity was made possible by his generous donation. It's possible that some of you are hearing about us for the first time. Thanks to his donation, we get to serve as McGill's central hub for supporting ethical decision-making in business through teaching, academic research, and community engagement. And since our founding 2.5 years ago, some of our activities have included an annual business ethics conference every November, a student fund to help students fund their own events of their interest related to ethics and equity, bringing the Ethics Bowl to Quebec, and an annual business ethics case competition. We're excited that next month we're welcoming 16 university teams from across Canada and the US for that competition. And we'll also be hosting a Women's Month event titled The Women of Desautels, Past, Present, and Future. So if you would like to stay in touch with us, and I hope you do, please scan this QR code to join our mailing list. And we love evaluations here, so please take a moment to let us know what you thought about tonight's event by scanning the other QR code. And you're also going to get that via email because I want to hear from you. So thank you again. Please feel free to stay a while, finish the food. And Zara is going to help me give gifts to our panelists and our speakers. So thank you very much.